are harvested. So we're on page 1. Let's get started. Again, bear with me with some of these names that I cannot pronounce, but I will try my best. I'll try my best efforts. Flowers like hope are harvested. September 1995. To the men and women in solidarity, Chiapas, Mexico, meeting in Brescia, Italy, to the peoples of the world. Brothers and sisters, in the name of all men, women, and children and elders of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army, I greet you and express our hope that you and Centro goes well. We know we have brothers and sisters in other countries and continents. We are united by a world order that destroys nations and we are united by a world order that destroys nations and cultures. Today, money, the great international criminal. Hold on a second, let me do something real quick, everybody. Thank you. All right. Sorry, everybody. We know we have brothers and sisters in other countries and continents. We are united by a world order that destroys nations and cultures. Today, money, the great international criminal, has a name that reflects the incapacity of power to create new things. Today we suffer a new world war, a war against all peoples, against humanity, against culture, against history. It is an international war of money versus humanity, carried out by a handful of financial centers, without homeland and without shame. Now, this international terror is called neoliberalism, an international economic order that has already caused more death and destruction than the great world wars. We have become brothers with more poor and more dead. We are united by a dissatisfaction, rebellion, the desire to do something, by nonconformity. History written by power taught us that we had lost that cynicism and profit were virtues, that honesty and sacrifice were unintelligent, that individualism was the new God. The hope was devalued money, without currency in the international markets, without buying power, without hope. We did not take in the lessons. We were bad pupils. We did not believe that power taught us. We skipped class when they taught conformity and idiocies. We failed modernity. Classmates in rebellion, we discovered and found ourselves, brothers. We are united by an imagination, by creativity, by tomorrow. In the past, we not only meet defeat, but also found a desire for justice and the dream of being better. We left skepticism hanging from the hooks of big capital and discovered that we could believe that it was worth believing, that we should believe in ourselves. We learned that many solitudes did not make one great solitude, but a collective that found itself united beyond nationality, language, culture, race, and gender. We, the Zapatistas, are still here in the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, still surrounded, still persecuted, with death hanging from our every movement, from each breath, from each step. The government is still in play in the palace, still circling, still persecuting, still offering death and misery, still lying. More than 1 million Mexicans have participated in the unprecedented democratic exercise and made manifest their agreement with our principal demand. Many brothers and sisters in foreign lands have ratified it. The government is still deaf. Tens of thousands of men and women mobilized themselves to support the national consulta of peace and democracy. The government is still blind. Hunger and illness drown entire communities. The federal army increases its military actions and preparations for murder. Political parties refuse to recognize the indigenous people as citizens. The media makes themselves complacent of the lie and the silence. Desperation and anger become the national heritage. We are ignored, despised, and forgotten. It is clear. It's clear. Triumph is closer than ever. We are already prepared to form solidarity groups with the struggles in our respective countries. We assured that we will support you to the end, which may not be in triumph, and will not abandon you, and will not abandon you. Don't be discouraged by difficulties. You should resist. You should press on and know that in the mountains of southeast Mexico, there is a collective heart that is with you and supports you. Don't feel alone or isolated. We will be watchful and will not forget you. Vale, health to you, and don't forget that flowers like hope are harvested from the mountains of the Mexican Southeast. Subcomandante Sergeant Marcos. Number 32, called From Vietnam to Chiapas, 20 years before, September 13th, 1995. To the people of the United States, the U.S. government has been wrong, not just a few times in its foreign policy. When this has occurred, it's because it made a mistake in the man it backed up. History gives us ample examples of this. In the first half of this decade, the U.S. government made a mistake backing Carlos Salinas de Gortari. It made a mistake signing NAFTA, which lacked the support of the majority of the North American people, and which spelled a summary execution of Mexico indigenous peoples. On the dawn of 1994, we rose up in arms. We rose up not seeking power, not in response to a foreign mandate. We rose up to say, we are here. The Mexican government, our government, had forgotten us and was ready to perpetrate a G-side without bullets or bombs. It was ready to annihilate us with the quiet death and sickness of misery of oblivion. The U.S. government became the accomplice of the Mexican government in this genocide. With the sign of NAFTA, the U.S. government acted as guarantors and gave its blessing to the murder of millions of Mexicans. Did the people of the United States know this? Did they know that their government was signing accords of mass extermination in Mexico? Did the people of the United States know that their government was backing a criminal? That man left. We remained. Our demands had not been met, and our weapons kept saying, quote, we are here, end quote. To the new government, to the people of Mexico, to the people and governments of the world, we await patiently for a new government to listen to us and pay attention to us. But within the dark circles of U.S. power, someone decided that we, the insurgent indigenous people of the Mexican Southeast, were the worst threat to the United States of America. From the darkness came the order. Get rid of them. They put a price on our brown skin, on our culture, on our word. But above all, they put a price on our uprising. The U.S. government decided once more to back a man who continues the politics of deceit of his predecessors, who denies the people of Mexico democracy, freedom, and justice. Millions of dollars were lent to that man and his government without the approval of the American people. An erroneous loan without precedent in history was granted to the Mexican government, not to improve the living conditions of the people, not for the democratization of the country's political life, not for economic reactivation, promoting factories and productive projects. This money was for speculation, for corruption, for stimulation, for annihilation of a group of rebels, indigenous, for the most part, poorly armed, poorly nourished, ill-equipped, but very dignified, very rebellious, and very human. So much money to finance deceit can only be explained by fear. But what does the US government fear? The truth? The North American people realize that their money is helping to back the oldest dictatorship in the modern world. The North American people realize that their taxes pay for the persecution and the death of Mexican indigenous population. What are the North American people afraid of? Should they fear our wooden rifles, our bare feet, our exhausted bodies, our language, our culture? Should they fear our shout that demands democracy, liberty, and justice? Aren't these three truths the foundations that inspired the birth of the United States of America? Aren't democracy, liberty, and justice rights that belong to all human beings? How many millions of dollars can justify that anyone human being in any part of the world be denied the rights to be free, to think, and to bring about words and action? Free to give and receive that which he justly deserves, free to elect those who govern him and enforce the collective goals. Shouldn't the North American people instead fear money, modern weapons, the sophisticated technology of drug trafficking? Should the North American people fear the complicity between drug trafficking and the governments? Shouldn't they fear the consequences of a single-party dictatorship in Mexico? Should they fear the violence that the lack of freedom, democracy, and justice irrevocably brings about? Today, the US government, which for decades has prided itself in promoting democracy in the world, is the main support of a dictatorship. Sooner or later, in spite of the support of the US government, in spite of the millions of dollars, in spite of the tons of lies, the dictatorship that darkens the Mexican sky will be erased. The people of Mexico will find the way to achieve the democracy, liberty, and justice that is their historical right. Hello again, everybody. Just going back, making sure. Whoops. All right, sweet. Americans, the attack against the Mexican nation brought about by political U.S. personalities have been big and numerous. In their analysis, they point out the awkwardness and corruption of the Mexican government, and awkwardness and corruption that has increased and are maintaining under the shadow of the U.S. government support. And they identify them with their entire people who take shelter under the Mexican flag. They are wrong. Mexico is not a government. Mexico is not a government. Mexico is a nation that inspires to be sovereign and independent. And in order to be that, it must liberate itself from the dictatorship and rise on its soil the universal flag of democracy, liberty, and justice. Fomenting racism, fear, and insecurity, the great personalities of the U.S. politics offers economic support to the Mexican government so that it controls by violent means the Mexican discontent with the economic situation. They offer a multiple and absurd walls they offer to multiply the absurd walls with which they pretend to stop and search for life, driving millions of Mexicans to cross the northern border. The best wall against massive immigration to the U.S. is a free, just, and democratic regime in Mexico. If Mexicans can find in their own land that now is denied them, they would not be forced to look to work in other countries. by supporting the dictatorship of the party state system in Mexico, whatever the name of the man or the party. The North American people are supporting an uncertain and anguished future. By supporting the people of Mexico in their aspiration for democracy, liberty, and justice, the North American people honor their history and their human condition. Today, in 1995, after 20 years and tens of thousands of dead and wounded, the American government recognized that it made a mistake getting involved in Vietnam War. By providing war materials support, military advisors, undercover actions, electronic espionage, financing, diplomatic support, CIA activities, the U.S. government has begun to get involved in the Mexican government's dirty war against the Zapatistas population. Little by little, it is getting involved in an unequal war, condemned to failure for the Mexican government that is carrying it on. Today, in 1995, 20 years before 2015, it is possible to stop, not to be repeated the error of other years. It is not necessary to wait until 2015 for the U.S. government to recognize that it was wrong to involve in the war against the Mexican people. It is time for the people of the United States to keep their historical commitment to their neighbor to the South and not make a mistake in the man they support. To support not a man but a people, the Mexican people who struggle for democracy, liberty, and justice. History will tell implacable on which side the people of the government of the United States stood, on the side of dictatorship, of one man, of reaction, or on the side of democracy, of the people of progress. Veil health to you, and long live the people of the United States of America. From the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante Insurgente Marcos. 33. Title: A call to Latin America. March 10th, 1996. In Latin America, in the pain-filled south of the American continent, planet Earth, seventh planet of the solar system, if you were coming from beyond, like from the stars that's up there above. No, not that one. The other one. And we're walking towards the sun, the same way you walk inward with fear and hope. Suppose it isn't true, that there's no alternative. Suppose impunity and harm aren't the only future. Suppose it's possible that a thin line separating war and peace won't grow ever narrower. Suppose that some they used the word madmen, and romantics believe that another world, another life is possible. Suppose the worst, that these madmen believe these, I have to say it, I don't know how else to say, believe there are others, more madmen who think like them. Suppose the immiscible of all these madmen want to get together. Suppose that from this meeting of the madmen, some measure of reason will emerge. I'm waiting for, hopefully, maybe someone will give me an alternative word, but I'm waiting. Not yet. Wouldn't you like to attend such a mad meeting of impositions? Yes? No? If suppose you'd answer no, then get serious. Don't bother with the following paragraph and write, quote, wrong address, end quote. Somewhere in the margins, don't bother returning it to the sender. If you suppose you'd answer yes, do something useful in this invitation. Start a fire, make a paper plane or a paper doll, something that will make you smile. If beyond supposing that you'd like to go, you suppose you would like to attend this meeting and may even try to get to it, then read on. If you are already too dizzy, it may interest you to know that the Pan-American meeting from the Humanity Against Neoliberalism will be taking place in La Realidad. Isn't that charming? Now that we have our suspicions, suppositions, and suppositors, and you suppose that you are attending, you suppose you'll want to know when and how. I'd like you to accept our invitation so those April days can witness history being induced by to rebel, to shake itself up and wake itself up and change its course so it can accompany us to the Pan-American meeting of Humanity Against Neoliberalism. As the law of these times dictates, will be in La Realidad, one of those corners of the southeastern Chiapas, where pain is transformed into hope, thanks to the complicated chemistry and dignity of and rebellion. The days, yes, they're usually denoted on the calendar as 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of April of the year we're enduring, 1996. The how, quote unquote, has a few details we won't include here so as not to spoil our lunch or ruin our excitement at discovering the existence of the meeting that is that this invitation to the meeting presupposes. So we'll leave the details to the committee chairwoman if she can find them. Good. Now, when someone is supposedly looking for you, you have the option of hiding or concurring with that you're both looking for the same thing. Because of this kind of meeting, it's better to take the initiative. Just so you know, please pack the necessary pencil in case you get an opportunity to write something. Color paper for various sizes. If no one pays attention, you can see at least making little paper dolls a good length of string. So if you stray from the meeting, you can find your way back. Where? The patience and discretion. Around here, we're experts at hoping, but will you make it? Veil health to you. And while you're on the subject, here's hoping we make history before history makes it for us. From the wilds of the Mexican Southeast, I don't know why, Subcomandante Insurgente Marcos. P.S. Did you notice this invitation's cold, formal tone? Doesn't this transgressor of the law open this very important international event with wondrous gravity? Doesn't this invitation at least deserve a simple yes, no, or I don't know RSVP sent via the only secure conduit, i.e. a paper plane? No, don't worry. The wind knows which way to blow, and carry your reply to us if we can be found at all. 34. These are all just writings. Some of them are essays, some of them are responses, some of them are poems. But it does drive the conditions of what the Zapatistas seek for and why. So a lot of this is just like it says, selective works. So on independent media, January 31st, 1997, a message from Subcomandante Insurgente Marcos to, quote, free the media, end quote, teach in New York, NYC. Where in the mountains of the southeast Mexico, in the Lacandian jungle of Chiapas, and we want to use this medium with the help of the National Commission of Democracy in Mexico to send a greeting to the quote, free the media, end quote, conference that is taking place in New York, where there are brothers and sisters of independent communication medias from the United States and Canada at an intercontinental encuentro for humanity and against neoliberalism. We said a global deep decomposition is taking place. We call it the Fourth World War. Through neoliberalism, the global economic process to eliminate the multitude of people who are not useful to power, the groups called minorities in the mathematics of power, but who happen to be the majority population of the world. We find ourselves in a world system of globalization, willing to sacrifice millions of human beings. The giant communication media, the great monsters of television industry, the communication satellites, magazines, and newspapers seem determined to present a virtual world created in the image of what the globalization process requires. In this sense, the world of contemporary news is a world that exists for the VPNs, the very important people, the major movie stars, and the big politicians. Their everyday lives are what is important. If they get married, if they get divorced, if they eat, what clothes they wear, and what clothes they take off. Common people only figure in the news for a moment. Then, when they kill someone, or when they die, for the communication giants of the neoliberal powers, the others and the excluded only exist when they are dead or when they are in jail or court. This cannot go on. Sooner or later, the virtual world clashes with the real world. And that is actually happening. This clash results in rebellion and war throughout the entire world, or what is left on of the world to even have war. We have a choice. We can have a clinical, a cynical attitude in the face of the media and say that nothing can be done about the dollar power that creates itself in images, words, digital communications, and computer systems that invade not just with the invasion of power, but with the way of seeing that world, of how they think the world should look. We could say, well, quote, that's the way it is, end quote, and do nothing. Or we can simply assume credulity, that we can say that any communication by the media monopolies is a total lie. We can ignore it and go about our lives. But there is a third option. That is neither conformity, nor skepticism, nor distrust. It is an option to construct a different way to show the world that is really happening. The world, what is really happening, to what a critical worldview, to become interested in the truth of what's happening to the people who inhabit every corner of this world. The people of independent media is to tell the world the history of social struggles in the world. Here in North America, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, dependent media has on occasion been able to open spaces even within the mass media monopolies to enforce them to acknowledge news of social movements. The problem is not only to know what is occurring in the world, but to understand it and to derive lessons from it. Just as if we were studying history, not of the past, but of what is happening in any given moment in whatever part of the world. This is the way to learn who we are, what it is we want, who we can be, and what we can do or not do. By not having to answer to the monsters media monopolies, the independent media has a life's work, a political project, and a purpose to let the truth be known. This is increasingly more important in the globalization process. Truth becomes a knot of resistance against the lie. Our only possibility is to save the truth, to maintain it and distribute it little by little in the same way that books were saved in Fahrenheit 451. A group of people dedicated themselves to memorize books to save them from being destroyed so that the ideas would not be lost. In this same way, independent media tries to save history, today's history, tries to save it and tries to share it if it will not disappear. Moreover, it tries to distribute it to other places so that the history is not limited to one country, to one region, to one city or social group. It is necessary not only for independent voices to exchange information on a broaden and to broaden the channels, but to resist the monopolies spreading lies. The truth that we build in our groups, our cities, our regions, our countries will reach full potential if we join with other truths and realize that what is occurring in other parts of the world also is part of human history. In August 1996, we called for the creation of a network of independent media, a network of information. We mean a network to resist the power of the lie and that sells us this war that we call World War IV. Interesting. We need this network not only as a tool for our social movement, but for our lives. This is a project for life, for a humanity that has a right to critically and truthfully critical and truthful information. We greet all of you, recognizing the work that you have done so that the struggle of indigenous people is known and that other struggles are known so that the great events of this world are seen in a critical form. We hope our meeting is a successful and that it results in concrete plans for this network, these exchanges, this mutual support that should exist between cultural workers and independent new media makers. We hope that one day we can personally attend your meetings, or perhaps that one day you can have your conference in our territory so we can listen to your words and you can hear ours in person. For now, we take advantage of the help of the National Commissions for Democracy in Mexico to use this video to send a greeting. This section in English. I don't know if my English is okay, but good luck and so long. Cut. Let me look at this note. The Zapatistas see. Okay. So it's going to tell you why it says World War IV. The Zapatistas sees the Cold War as World War III. The economic globalization or neoliberalism as World War IV. Oh, okay. Makes sense. 35. That makes sense. Hey, sharing. Welcome if you're still here. Doesn't look like anybody. All right, cool. Letters of Indigenous Leadership of the United States, March 1997. To the leadership of the indigenous peoples of the United States of America, brothers and sisters, I write these words to you in the name of the children, elders, men, and women, all of them indigenous of the Zapatistas communities of the Mexican Southeast. We want you to know we recognize your greatness as indigenous peoples and human beings, and we want you to receive this salute sent through my hands from all the indigenous rebels of the Zapatistas National Liberation Armies. We have taken up arms against the bad Mexican government because the demands of the indigenous peoples have not been met. For the Mexican government and the great powers that sustain it, the indigenous people are nothing more than objects for tourism, producers of art and crafts, an uncomfortable nuance for neoliberal modernization. Power in Mexico, the indigenous are not human beings with rights and legitimate aspirations. They are only museum pieces, legends, and past histories. But our indigenous communities want a life with dignity and justice, a life where they can continue to be indigenous without a signifying misery and death, a life with respect, This is why we declare ourselves rebels and why we say, quote, enough is enough, to the oblivion with which we want to annihilate, which they want to annihilate us. Today we are still waiting for a response from the government of Mexico to our request for peace. It has not arrived. The Mexican government refuses to acknowledge that the indigenous people of Mexico have a right to respect, to a life of dignity and a new peace. Power sees us as small and weak. It believes it can conquer us and make us surrender with its war machines. The great North American government supports the Mexican government with money, war machines, and military advisors. The government of the United States supports the persecutions and assassinations of Mexican indigenous blood. The money, equipment, weapons, and military advisors are not used by the Mexican government to improve the lives of its inhabitants, to combat drug trafficking, and to bring peace to the Mexican land. No, that money, those people, and those weapons are used to Let me see this word. Hold on a second, everybody. I have to look at this word. It's asphyxiate. Asphyxiate. Yeah, they're saying that the Third World War was neoliberalism is the fourth. Yeah, that's what they say. Asphyxiate. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. It's interesting. It is. It's interesting to reflect on. Yeah, the money, equipment, weapons, and military advisors are not used for the Mexican government to improve the lives of its inhabitants, to combat drug traffickers, and to bring peace to the Mexican lands. Not that money, those people, and those weapons are used to asphyxiate, persecute, jail, and assassinate any attempts at indigenous dignity. But our struggle is not just that of the Zapatistas, of the EZLN. Our struggle is that all the indigenous peoples of America, the struggle to recognize our differences and our right to the exclusive autonomy, which makes us members with full rights of the great human concert. That is why we direct our small words to you. You, the leaders of the dignified indigenous peoples of North America, have the true word and the path of dignity. Your great wise men have shown you the path for understanding justice in the cries of first peoples of Mexican lands. You will know how to understand our cries, and we are sure you will know how to extend to us your hearts and your hands in order to achieve the peace that we desire and we deserve. Our word is heard with attention and respect by the big government of the United States of America. That is why we ask you to support us with our mediation. We do not want war, nor what does not belong to us, nor our destruction or enslavement. We want peace. We want to conquer our right to become better human beings. We want to create our world and be respected inside it. We want liberty. We ask you, great leaders of the indigenous peoples of North America, to intervene before the powerful one who governs the United States of America, and to tell him to stop his support for the war against our people and the persecution of our ideals. We serve no foreign interests. We serve only our history and our desire for dignity, democracy, liberty, and justice. We ask this of you, great indigenous leaders. We ask for your support and your championship in the struggle that belongs to all human beings in any part of the world. The struggle for liberty, veil, health to you, and many and may the earth that is mother and root nurture tomorrow. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante Sergeante Marcos. 36. From here to there and back again, as the 20th century hastens to sleep in the place history, that is, we granted March 1997 to the Committee of Solidarity with the Zapatista struggles all over the world, planet Earth. Brothers and sisters, greetings and health to you. We are still here. We continue to be here. The night above is a bare gray reflection of the night below. In these mountains, for some reason, the night below is always the deeper night than the night above. I don't know whether it's the same in other parts of the world or vice versa. At least here's the dawn. Perhaps it's the dark night or vice versa of the reflection reminding me of the poem Tweedledee, I can't say it. Or was it Tweedledum? Ooh. Recited to Allison and through the looking glass. It was called, quote, the Walrus and the Carpenter. And it begins like this. Everybody forgive me. Here we go. That's fucking weird. Hold on a second, everybody. All right. I think I got it. All right. All right. The sun, it was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was in the middle of the night. Lewis Carroll. That's who that comes from. And like the sea, with its insistent force, a kind of urgent desire comes over me to chat with you, and I say hello. Or maybe this is just an excuse to try building a multiple bridge, a walking octopus that can simultaneously reach to the European continent and the Asian, and can plant one arm on Oceania, another on Australia, and another on Africa, that can rest its... I'm sorry, that's... Oh, that's not even my thing. That's a bug. Holy crap. I'll just leave it on. Africa, and can rest its leftovers, however many arms, or on whatever American corner there is. I can't do this. I have to have the thing on. I'm sorry. There is a rebellion, is a banner here in this shard of the mirror of rebellion in the world, that the March hare wakes up the stretches, and in the rainfalls and sunshines that take turns jumbling up the weather and the hours. And speaking of hours, the hours coming for us to sit down together once again, we who are so alike in other differences, everyone who we are, but well, that isn't the substance of this letter, not yet anyway, what is it then? Well, strictly speaking, the substance of this letter is paper and ink, and the heart that gets dressed in the former and covers itself in the latter to travel a long bridge that gives way to languages, colors, cultures, borders, armies, police, and crosses at considerable number of kilometers by air, sea, and land to reach that other heart that you and we carry in our left sides. So then, assuming the bridge is now spanned and the hearts have found each other, and greets goes, hold on a second again. Where was I at? Okay. So then, assuming the bridge is now spanned, and the hearts have found each other. And greeting goes from here to there to all of you, from the men, women, and children and elders of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. Number one, on this side of the greeting and the bridge, on this side with the national power, we Mexicans suffer. It shows time and time for spectacles, just like the three-wing circus in Mexico. Power photographs itself in tragic comedies. Its corruption revealed and exposed. Its demagoguery dressed in modernity and brash stridence, much touted supermarkets of election time political proposals. There is plenty of time for spectacle, little time for democracy, less time for justice, and no time for liberty. Both a high and low trip over themselves, marching to the rhythm power beats on. Amid the rush to get there, the question, where are we going? Indefinitely postpone its own answer. Besides this time for lamentable spectacles, the small people's time reflects, the looks within itself to find the other small people of Mexico and the world made big by the hope of multiplies itself, which we are given by our walk. We find within ourselves, that is within you, the breath of dignity needs for food, that hope's needs for direction, that patient and tender fury of one who knows his strength lies in the good reasons that moves him. The government's dismissal of the San Andreas Accords has served one good purpose. Now it's clear the demands of the EZLN indigenous are not just for Chiapas. They address the aspiration of all indigenous peoples of these lands, and each in their own particular way, reflecting the aspirations of indigenous people of the whole American continent. The spokesperson for Mexico's power recently said that the government does not need the internet to demonstrate its willingness for a dialogue with the indigenous Zapatistas. It's obvious that the monologue it proposes doesn't need a thing, with the possible exception of the mirror. But more than once, power's bureaucratic tone revealed the frustration and rancor that the ruckus circulating in cyberspace is giving him. Letters and manifestos addressed to the supposed president of Mexico, bother the government, because both ask for the same thing, that the Mexican government keep its word of the San Andreas Accords. Some of those letters make it into the Mexican press, others most don't. An apparent national indifference tries to cover up the international disquiet caused by a government incapable of finding a political solution to the situation it provoked with military arguments. Yeah. The government receives requests to comply with the accords. They come here from all over the world. The government doesn't heed them, or it seems not to heed them. If only you could see over here, El Supremo only has ears for praise and gratitude, and of course for the order coming from the powers of finances. The Mexican government is bothered. It's not just the protests and demands coming through the internet, but also the demonstrations in front of the embassies and consulates all over the world. And since we are chatting, let me tell you something that I hope you'll understand is just a timid homage to the efforts that you all make to back us up and not let us be forgotten again. Over here, they're telling a story about the local agent of export sales, the accurate job title, and the so-called Mexican Secretary of Foreign Affairs, who, on the eve of a visit abroad, conscientiously prepared himself to explain away the corruption, drug trafficking, and election problems in Mexico, and to pacify the so-called investors with great plans for political and military control, and of course, appetizing merchandises. Communism always works, but all this preparation didn't do him much good. Didn't do him much good. At the end of the traveling salesman, brilliant quote unquote speech, a foreign spokesperson presses him with questions about the negotiations with the EZLN and why they're still suspended. The Mexican bureaucrat pulled out a map of Mexico to show the foreigner how the EZLN is only a tiny little problem in a tiny little corner of the tiny little Mexican Southeast, perfectly contained and controlled by the powerful military force of the federal government. In the response, the foreigner showed him a pile of email messages and newspaper clippings about the demonstrations in front of the Mexican embassies and consulates in various parts of the world. The Mexican, who someday hopes to acquire full citizenship in money, argued that subversion has many worldwide ramifications, that these destabilization attempts are bound to fail, and that a few hackers, quote unquote, I think that's what they call the pirates of cyberspace, were no reason to interfere with the solid commercial trade that the bountiful Mexican state, and so on. The foreigner interrupted him to clarify, quote, these demonstrations are about subversion and these messages aren't properly instability. They're simply asking the Mexican government to keep its word. As to there being few in numbers, well, millions all over the world use the internet, and the demonstrations in Europe and in the United States represents dozens of thousands. They all say the same thing, quote, keep your word, end quote. There was a small respite before the foreigner aided, quote, tell me something in confidence. Why don't you comply with what you signed? If the Mexican government is afraid of being fragmented, it should look at the example of other countries that have recognized and legislated autonomous zones and not fallen apart. To the contrary, the country that didn't do this have split to pieces. But in any case, why did you sign something you're unwilling to fulfill? We are to believe that the agreements you've signed with us won't be kept either? No, Mr. Guerrera, your name? No, there must be more to it. So tell me, what is the Mexican government afraid of? End quote. The businessman, disguised as a Mexican bureaucrat, trembled as did his foreign counterpart when he answered, we fear tomorrow. Here in number 3, this is another part, I think, of the poem. Well, it's no use. It's no use. You're talking about waking him, said Tweedledum. When you're only one of the things in the dream, you know very well you're not real. I am real, said Alice, and began to cry. Lewis Carroll through the looking glass. From this side of the bridge, and the greeting, the meddling, and small struggles, the large ones are neither here nor there. Need your strength and witness. Power practice is magic, juggling tricks, and sounding. Hold on. Yeah. Power practices It's magic, juggling tricks, and sound effects of all sorts and size, so you won't be able to see too clearly. But in spite of them, you've taken the time and trouble to reach out with your support and sympathies, restoring us. While power has done everything possible to erase us. I don't even know what time it is. From the map of actual history, you have taken to the word, to the street, media, and asphalt to remind us, and in passing, the Mexican government, that we are not alone. We know little of your struggle. The bridge, your generosity has stretched out to us. To listen to the word of the indigenous Zapatistas has only just begun its return journey. With surprise and admiration, we're only beginning to recognize your respective histories and rebellion and resistance. Your struggle against racism, against patriarchy, against religious intolerance, against xenophobia, against militarization, against ecological destruction, against fascism, against segregation, against moral hypocrisy, against exclusion, against war, against hunger, against poor housing, against big capital, against authoritarianism, against dictatorship, against the politics of economic liberalization, against poverty, against robbery, against corruption, against decriminalization, against unintelligence, against the lie, against ignorance, against slavery, against injustice, against oblivion, against neoliberalism for humanity. For humanity and against neoliberalism is the call for the new incentro of rebellions and resistance coming this year. Up until then, and once there, we will have learned more about you and all the still scattered shards of the mirror of dignity, that dignity yet keeps whole within humanity's best men and women. So now, take advantage of the trip. We want to send you our thanks for having turned to look at us. Thanks for the hand that you stretched out to us, so we wouldn't fall back again into oblivion. Some time ago, we sent you a flower. Today, we send you one of our little rain clouds, so you can water that flower. So you should by dancing. Veil, health to you, and may the joy of rebellion keep filling the streets of all the continents. From the mountains of the Mexican Southwest, some Comandante and Sergeante Marcos. I don't know why it's not showing me the time. It's weird. Okay. This is number 37, it looks like. On May Day and Tupac Amaru, April 25th, 1997, to the national and international press, ladies and gentlemen. Some days ago, we heard on the radio news of the military assault on the Japanese embassy in Peru. The greatest international power decided upon a new crime in Latin American lands and ordered the assassination of the rebels of Tupac Amaru, who, let us not forget, were negotiating a solution to the crisis with the government of Fujimori. You will all recall that an attempt was being made to resolve the problems without violence, but the military went and occupied by gunfire, quote, a clean operation, end quote, said the news programs, and described Fujimori as smiling and happy, and way above him, supranational powers, which had given the order for annihilation also smiled. For months, the Peruvian government pretended to negotiate in order to find a peaceful solution. In reality, it only searched for the precise moment to strike. That is how they are. Power its neoliberal government. They pretend to dialogue and negotiate, when in reality they only seek the opportunity to exert their violence. Is this tragic episode for Latin America is an international blow to the path of dialogue and negotiation as a viable means of resolving conflicts? Fujimori and his bosses hurried a smile. The consent for Zedilio was also hurried. But a lot of history still remains to be written. And to think they have told us we should wait, not for an attack, but for a compliance to the agreements that were signed by the government. From Japanese embassy, oops. From the mountains, I always have to do this because it's always the end of the thing. From the mountains of the Mexican southeast, Subcomandante Resurgente Marcos, 38. This ocean no longer separates us. September 14th, 1997. Written to be read at the demonstration against racism and the Northern Leagues in Venice on September 13th, 1997. To the Zapatistas people, to the rebel peoples of Europe. Brothers and sisters, today, September 13th, 1997, two rebel marches come together in the Americas, in the country called Mexico. Our brothers and sisters of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army marched from the mountains of the southeast to the nation's capital, in the territories of Europe, in the country called Italy. We Zapatistas walk side by side with you. To the continents, two continents, Europe and America, are once more united in struggle. Here in Italy and there in Mexico, we struggle against racism and separatism. Here in Mexico and there in Italy, we struggle for community of freedom and mutual aid. Here and there, we clash with a world system making racism a new religion. Here and there, the rich and powerful are the greatest fanatics of intolerance against the different. Here and there, neoliberalism destroys nations in order to own them. Here and there, it displays a cynicism and cruelty. Here and there, it persecutes those espousing freedom and mutual aid. There and here, neoliberalism offers us only deduction. For this reason, we'll no longer speak for here and there. For this reason, this ocean no longer separates us or makes us different, because lack of freedom makes us the same, because we are united in the racism we suffer within and across borders, because the war they impose on us makes us compraneras and compraneras. In America and in Europe, the oppression we suffer is the same. Colors, language, cultures vary, but oppression is a constant. This is why we Zapatistas are here with you today. This is why we are here. This is why you are here with us today, because we no longer want this kind of world. We no longer want crime celebrated, because we no longer want falsehood treated as a virtue, because we no longer want others to impose their forms of being and thinking on us. We want to be free, and the only way to be free is to be together. This is why we want to be free and in solidarity. We won't enter this world. The rich and powerful want to hunt us down because we are trouble to them. But we won't go. We won't remain silent. We'll stand fast. We'll struggle. We'll build another world. A big one, a better one, bigger, better. One in which all worlds can fit. Rebel brothers and sisters of Europe, Italian brothers and sisters, all All of you have taught us many things. We're honored to be with you on today's march. We thank you for giving space and voice to the Zapatistas. The bridge you've built with your hearts has spanned this ocean. Brothers and sisters, cry out. Cry out is a form of dreaming. And your dreams are heard far away. We echo them. All who struggles echoes them, because throughout the world, everyone shares them. Democracy, freedom, and justice. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Compañera, Maribel, Subcomandante, Insurgent Marcos, Compañeros, Mayasa. I can't say it. 39. Let's see here. We're doing good. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Everybody ready? Here we go. Letter to Muma Abu Jamal. Ooh. Mahuma Abu Jamal, American Union. To Mr. Muma, Mumia. I am writing to you in the name of the men, women, children, and elderly of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army in order to congratulate you on your April 24th, your birthday. Perhaps you have heard us. We are Mexican, mostly indigenous, and we took up arms on January 1st, 1994, demanding a voice, a face, and a name for the forgotten of the earth. Since then, the Mexican government has made war on us, pursues and harasses us, seeking our death, our disappearance, and our absolute silence. The reason? These lands are rich with oil, uranium, and precious lumber. The government wants them for the great transnational companies. We want them for all Mexicans. The government sees our lands as a business. We see our history written in these lands in order to defend our right and that of all Mexicans to live with liberty, justice, democracy, justice, and dignity. We become an army and took on the name and voice and a face. Perhaps you wonder how we know of you, about your birthday, and why it is that we extend this long bridge that goes from the mountains of the Mexican Southeast to the prisons of Pennsylvania, where you are unjustly incarcerated. Many good people from many parts of the world have spoken to you. Through them, we have learned how you were ambushed by North American police in December 1981, of the lies that they constructed in the procedures against you, and of your death sentence in 1982. We learned how your birthday, through the international mobilization that under the name of millions of Mayuma, are being prepared this April 24th. It is harder to explain this bridge that this letter extends. It is more complicated. I could tell you that for the powerful of Mexico and the government to be indigenous or to look indigenous is a reason for disdain, abhorrence, distrust, and hatred. The racism that now floods the palaces of power in Mexico goes to the extreme of carrying out a war of extermination and genocide against millions of indigenous. I am sure that you will find similarities with that power in the United States does with the so-called people of color. African Americans, Chicanos, Puerto Ricans, Asians, North American indigenous people, and any other peoples who do not have the insipid color of money. We are also people of color, the same color as our brothers who have Mexican blood and live the struggle of in the American Union. Our color is brown, the color of the earth, color from which we take our history, our strength, our wisdom, and our hope. But in order to struggle, we add the color black to our brown. We use black ski masks to show our faces. Only then can we be seen and heard. Following the advice of a Mayan elder who explained to us the meaning of the color black, we close this color. Old Don Antonio, this wise elder, died in this rebel Zapatista's land in March 1994, a victim of tuberculosis, which gnawed away at his lungs and his breath. Old Don Antonio used to tell us that from black came light. From there came the stars that light up the sky around the world. He recounted a story of a long time ago, when time wasn't yet measured, when the first gods were entrusted to give birth to the world. In one of their gatherings, they understood that the world needs to have life and movement. But in order to have life and movement, light was necessary. Then they thought of making the sun so that the days would move, making day and night, and the time for struggle, the time for making love. The world would go walking with the day and nights, the days and nights. The gods had their gathering and came to this agreement in front of the large fire, and they knew it was necessary that one of them be sacrificed by throwing himself into the fire, and himself becoming fire and flying into the sky. The gods thought that the sun's work was the most important, so they chose the most beautiful god to step into the fire and become the sun. He was afraid, but he was afraid. The smallest god, the one who was black, said he was not afraid, and he knew, and he threw himself into the fire and became the sun. Then the world had light and movement, and there was time for struggle, time for love, and while it was day, the bodies worked to make the world, and while it was night, the bodies made love, and filled the darkness, and sparkles filled the darkness. That is what old Don Antonio told us. And that is why we use black ski masks. So we are the color brown. So we are of the color brown and of the color black. We are also yellow because the first people who walked these lands were made of corn. So they would be true. And we are also red because this is the call of blood that has dignity. And we are also blue because we are the sky. We are the sky in which we fly. And green, for the mountains. That is our house and our strength. And we are white because we are paper, so that tomorrow can write its story. So we are 7 colors because there are 7 first gods who birthed the world. This is what old Don Antonio said long ago. And now I tell you this story so that you may understand the reason for this bridge of paper and ink that I send to you all the way from the mountains of the Mexican Southeast. And also so that you may understand that with this bridge go greetings and embraces from the Leonard Peltier, who is a Leavenworth prison, who is in Leavenworth prison, and for the more than 100 political prisoners in the United States who are victims of injustice, unintelligence, and authoritarianism. Also on this letter bridge walks a greeting for the Dene, who fight in the big mountains, Arizona, against the violations of their traditional Dene religious practices. They struggle against those who favor large businesses and don't respect the religious freedoms of the indigenous peoples, against those who want to destroy sacred grounds and ceremony sites, as as is the case with the Peabody Western Coal Company, which without reason wants to take the land and the land's rights, and with them a history that belongs to the Dene and their future generations. But this letter bridged has more than just stories of resistance against North American injustice. The extreme south of our continent, in Chile, the indigenous Mapuche women in the Pehuenche center of Alto Boy confront unintelligence. Bertha and Nicolasa Guentremen are accused of mistreating members of the Chilean government's armed forces. There you have it. An armed military unit with rifles, sticks, and tear gas protected by bullets, bulletproof vests, helmets, shields, and shields, accuses two indigenous women of mistreatment. But Bertha is 74 years old and Nicolasa is 60. How is it possible that two elderly people confronted the heroic group of a heavy armed military? Because they are Mapuche. The story is the same as that of the Dene brothers and sisters of Arizona. It repeats itself throughout the Americas. The companies Endesi wants the Mapuche's land, and in spite of the law that protects the indigenous, the government is on the side of the companies. The Mapuche students have pointed out that the government, the company, and the military intelligence have conducted a quote study end quote of the Mapuche communities. Its conclusions that the Mapuche cannot think, cannot defend themselves, cannot resist, that the Mapuche are incapable of building a better future for themselves. Apparently, the study was wrong. And it now occurs to me, perhaps, that the powerful ones of North America did a similar military insurgency study. Frankly, this is a contradiction, because those of us who are military are not intelligent. Otherwise, we wouldn't be military. On the Dene in Arizona, on Leonard Peltier, and on other political prisoners, on you, Mr. Mama, I can't say it. Perhaps they made this study and came to the conclusion that they might be able to violate justice and reason, to assault history and lose the truth, and that no one would say anything. The Dene indigenous people who stand by and watch the destruction of most sacred of their history, Leonard Peltier, would be alone, and you, Mr. Mamoun, would be silenced. I remember your own words, quote, "They not only want my death, they want my silence," end quote. But the studies were wrong. Happy mistakes. The Dene resist against those who wouldn't kill their memory. Leonard Peltier is accompanied by all those who demand his liberty, and you, sir, today you speak and shout with all the voices which celebrate your birthday, as all birthdays should be celebrated by struggling. Mr. Mamoun, we have nothing big to give you as a gift for your birthday. It is poor and little, but all of us send you an embrace. We hope that when you gain your freedom, you will come to visit us. Then we will give you a birthday party. And if it isn't April 24th, it will be an unbirthday party. There will be music, dance, and talk, the means by which men and women of all colors understand and know one another and build bridges over which they walk together towards history, towards tomorrow. Happy birthday. Vale, greeting to you, and may justice and truth find their place. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante and Sergeante Marcos. P.S. I read somewhere P.S. I read somewhere that you are a father and a grandfather. So I am sending you a gift for your children and grandchildren. It is a little wooden car with Zapatistas dressed in black ski masks. Tell your children and grandchildren that it is a gift. It is a gift that Zapatistas have sent you. You can explain to them that they are people of all colors, everywhere, just like you, who want justice, liberty, democracy for everyone. Let's see here. That might be a good stopping point. Let me look. I can read one more. It's a very, very small one. Let me read this small one real quick. No to the wars in the Balkans. No to the war in the Balkans, June 1999. To the people in the struggle against the war of the civic Europe. To the men and women who are saying no, brothers and sisters, greeting to all from the Zapatistas in Mexico. Right now, all over the world, different mobilizations and activities are being carried out against the war that money has shown in the heart of Europe. The war in Kosovo. In this war, power is bent on making all of us take sides. Either we support Milosevic ethnic cleansing war, or support NATO humanitarian war. This is money, and it's great alchemy, which offers us a portion of choosing between two wars and not between peace and war. On the counters of the globalization marketplace, power only products are different versions of the same war. It comes in all colors, flavors, sizes, and shapes to satisfy all tastes and all pocketbooks. But the result makes them all the same. Always destruction, always anguish, always death. And death, anguish, and destructions are always for the other and for the difference. And for those who are deemed unnecessary, for those who are in the way, for those who are below. And even within the mercantile logic of the merchants of death, neoliberalism wants to offer us fraud, a war that would supposedly avoid more death has done nothing but multiply them. A war that should be holding the conflict with check has made certain that the conflagration spread beyond the limits of its original geography. The intelligent, quote unquote, war does nothing but demonstrate the great destructive capacity of unintelligence. The good intention war has redefined human life. Its loss is now counted as collateral damage. It is a lie. It is not true that we have to take part in this lethal market. It is not true that the only option are between two different kinds of war. It is not true that we must take sides with one or the other unintelligence. It is not true that we must renounce intelligence and humanity. Nothing can legitimize civics, ethnic war. Nothing can legitimize NATO's humanitarian war. The trap is there, but there are more and more people who are refusing to fall into it, who are saying no to the war in the Balkans. Ooh, okay, I got one more thing. In Kosovo, it is not just the existence and resistance of the civic Europe that is at stake in the face of the Europe of money. It at stake is not just accepting or not accepting the de facto power of the new global police, the new clothing with which the Pentagon is dressing its troops. Also, a stake is a possibility of recognizing the other, the different, but not dead, imprisoned, humiliated, subjugated, persecuted, forgotten. We will not fall into the trap. We will not allow human losses to pass into history as collateral damages. We will not allow cynicisms and conformity to be the triumphant generals of the European war. Despite the power of money, despite the arms, despite the arbitrary acts, despite the attempts of hegemony and homogeneization, despite the traps, we still have the right to say no. That is what we shout today, a worldwide no to the lie that foreign fringes truths in the skies and the ground of Kosovo. No to the destruction of the different. No to the deaths of intelligence. No to citizens. No to indifferences. No to the choice between bloodthirsty criminals who are more perverse, or less perverse, more powerful or less powerful. If we do not say no to Kosovo today, tomorrow, we will say yes to the horrors of money that money now prepares all over the world. It is possible to have another world different than that the violent supermarket of neoliberalism is selling us. It is impossible to have another world where the choice is between war and peace, between memory and forgetting, between hope and resignation, between gray tones and rainbow. It is possible to have a world where many worlds fit. It is possible that from the no will be born an imperfect, unfinished, incomplete yes. An incomplete yes, sorry. That gives back to humanity in hope, the rebuilding every day, and the complex bridges join thought and feeling. This is what the Zapatistas are saying no. Viva life, death to death. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante and Sergeant Marcos. And we'll stop at 42, where it says the Maras Najamen, who keeps feigning death. Don't know what that's going to be about.